CVP Productions welcome you to Croft Rallycross circuit for the 1987 FIA Internations Cup. And the Croft circuit has changed tremendously since 1982 when the circuit reopened to the sound of Rallycross cars with Tony Drummond and Dennis Atkinson's Ford Escorts and the mighty Rs200 Capri of Tony Proctor. Once again followed by that man Atkinson, this time with a Porsche RSR. But the two-wheel drive cars almost instantly became obsolete with the advent of the four-wheel drive turbocharged supercars. The Ford X-Track Escort, the Metro 6R4 and the Ford Rs200 have really moved Rallycross to a new dimension of the most powerful cars probably seen in any branch of motorsport. But one thing with the Croft Rallycross circuit, the action over the years has always been very close, very tight and very spectacular. And a number of changes have been made to the Croft circuit over the years. The original tarmac section after the chicane, which was the old pit straight on the racing circuit, has now been made loose surface, with the Samson corner taken in fifth gear flat out, which tries the driver's skills to the absolute limits. A number of local drivers have made the grade. Michael Shield and Mark Renison, both British champions, one at the age 20 and the other at the age of 24. We'll take a lap with Mark in the 650 brake horsepower Ford Rs200, blasting off the line up into third gear, through Checkers corner and then holding third through Spa. Accelerating through the long sweeping right-hand section, car sliding as he tries to get it back under control for the flick left out of the chicane and onto the loose, up into fifth gear and pulling almost 135 miles an hour through the Samson curves. Over the humps, he's now got to fight the bucking, bouncing beast to try and get it slowed down to around about 50 miles an hour to take the Mad Hatter's complex, which is a series of 90-degree right and left-hand turns on broken tarmac. And is then up through the gears, flat on the floor, blasting through the shuttle again at around about 120 miles an hour. And that lap taken just over 35 seconds at an average speed of in excess of 70 miles an hour. But whether it's a supercar or clubman, the action at Croft is always spectacular. And Great Britain, by finishing second in Finland in 1986, won the chance to host the 1987 Internations Cup. And the British Rallycross team, Mark Renison, John Welch, Will Gollop, Trevor Hopkins, Michael Shield and Dimim of Rockloss, are all hoping to bring the Internations Cup honours to the Croft circuit. And leading the challenge against Britain is the Finnish team, with Mauno Jokinen in the 714 brake horsepower four-wheel drive bi-turbo Porsche. Also the 1987 European champion, Seppo Niittymaki, with the Peugeot 205 T16, also developing over 650 brake horsepower. Timo Virtanen, a driver very rarely seen outside Finland, but he's been their champion with his long wheelbase Audi Quattro, Jukka Peltari with his 900 brake horsepower bi-turbo Porsche, and then the Ford Rs200 of Pekka Rantanen, and the Lancia Delta S4 of Matti Alamäki. A very strong team from Sweden with Ole Arnesson, the 1986 European champion, and his Audi Quattro Sport. He's followed by Dan Andersson with the Ford Rs200, whilst the matching pair of Audi Quattro Sports of Sven Lestander and Anders Karlsson make up part of the Swedish team. They also have a matched pair of black Ford Rs200s, driven by Michael Nordstrom and Rolf Nielsen. Something of giant killers are the Belgian team, led by Mark Vereke with the long wheelbase Audi Quattro, the 1986 Belgian Division 1 champion Robert Verreken with his four-wheel drive Golf GTI 16 valve. And then the two most powerful cars in the Belgian team, the Porsche 911 bi-turbo four-wheel drives of Ludo Stoikers and Paul Kumpen. An unusual shape in Rallycross is the four-wheel drive Renault Alpine V6 of Eddie Nutz. Whilst 10-time Belgian champion has come out of retirement Françoise Monton, driving John Smith's ex-Martin Schenker X-Track Escort. Representing Germany is number 55 Torsten Ahrens with the four-wheel drive Golf GTI. A similar engine is fitted to Peter Roerig's Audi 80 Quattro. And then we've got Hans Kirchhoff with the Porsche 911 four-wheel drive. Adolf Heinz has the 20-valve Audi Quattro Sport engine in his long wheelbase car, whilst behind him we have yet another Porsche, this time the car of Peter Bohm. And bringing up the rear for the German team, we have a very unusual rallycross car, the Nissan Cherry 16-valve four-wheel drive of Wolfgang Schrader. Next we have a two-wheel drive team, Denmark with Arne Jorgensen and his Porsche 911 Turbo, and the similar car of Henrik Jakobsen. They're followed by John Christiansen with his Volkswagen Golf, whilst yet another Porsche belongs to the driver Flemming Hjersted. Behind them we have a Group A car, the Opel Manta i200 of Vagen Lorentzen. Whilst the only four-wheel drive car in the Danish team is that of London-based driver Morten Andersen with his Porsche 911. Norway were forced to make some last-minute changes to their team, but they're still led by Torholm with his Ford Rs200, which is followed by Andreas Narby's Metro 6R4, a last-minute addition. Behind them is Dagfinn Larsen with a 650 brake horsepower bi-turbo Metro 6R4. Another last-minute entry was Bjorn Kopperud with the Group A Volvo 240 Turbo. Whilst we've also got Arulf Martensen with a Grand Prix BMW engined M3 four-wheel drive. In the absence of Alistair Galloway's Audi Quattro, the Irish team's led by Kenny McKinstry's four-wheel drive Ford Escort, with Bertie Law's Chevette 2.3, Dermot Carnegie's Ford Fiesta 1600, and Gerard Cregan's Ford Escort rear-wheel drive, being team members. The last member of the team is Ed Colton with his Lotus Sunbeam, a man to watch out for. But now to the home team, led by Will Gollop, who was fourth in Europe this year with his Metro 6R4. He's followed by four times British champion Trevor Hopkins with the Ford Rs200. Next we have the Blackbird Dimiropoulos with the Audi Quattro Sport S1. And then one of the home drivers, Mark Rennison with the DSRM Ford Rs200 Evolution model. That's followed by the Croft debut of John Welch's new X-Track Opel, and then Croft's own local driver, Mike Shields, son of the circuit owner with his Metro 6R4. But disaster for Britain at the very first lap of practice. Mark Rennison's Ford Rs200 wrecks its engine, and Mark's relegated to the role of spectator as the cars whisk back to the workshops for an overnight engine change. Will Gollop now leads the British Challenge in the first heat, with his Metro 6R4 on the line next to Pekka Rantanen's Ford Rs200. On the outside of the front row for Sweden is Anders Karlsson's Audi Quattro Sport, but watch out for Andreas Norby behind him with the blue and yellow Metro for Norway. But off the line as the lights go green, and Will Gollop, the ever-consistent driver from Whitstable, gets the best start. Down to Spa for the first time, and it's Will Gollop from Pekka Rantanen and Anders Carlson. But just watch out for Francois Monton with that X-Track Escort taking the inside lane down into Chequers. But under braking, Monton has a suspension upright fail, and he ends up parking very unceremoniously in the tyres. But the first car through the chicane is Will Gollop's Metro, followed by Rantanen, Carlson and Nerby in the turbo-powered 6R4. Onto the loose of Samson Curve for the first time, and Gollop's pulling away from the field, looking to give Britain a perfect start in this, the first heat, with Finland second and Sweden third. Round the Mad Hatters complex, and the sun's now getting very low in the November sky. It's providing a bit of a visibility problem, but Gollop drives a perfect line to complete his first lap. The start of lap 2, and Gollop blasts through the shuttle towards Spa, the second time. The car's travelling at over 100 miles an hour around this section of the circuit. Will again takes a perfect line round Chequers in what looks like one of the quickest times. Will's driven so well at Croft this year, he's resulted in getting the fastest time of day at both rounds of the British Championship, ahead of the local favourite Mark Rennison, and also victory in both A finals. And as Will bounces across the loose and through Samson, the battle for second only just coming through the chicane, with Carlson still in command. Will's really got this race under control as he goes through the Mad Hatters complex and prepares to start his last lap. And once again Will takes a perfect line out of Mad Hatters, accelerates up through the gears, hitting about 110 miles an hour before blasting through the shuttle and taking Spa corner beautifully sideways, under control, and setting the car perfectly up for Chequers. Will then balances the car on the power all the way up that long sweeping right-hander into the chicane before flicking it left and then onto the loose. And as the car rounds Samson for the last time, this car which has made Will so successful must be giving the British team a terrific boost in morale. But as he rounds Mad Hatters for the last time, the star of this race, Will Gollop from Whitstable in Kent with the little Metro 6R4, giving Britain 5 points as he crosses the finish line to win his first heat. And it's a Metro 1-2 with Andreas Nerby from Norway taking second place with his Metro, ahead of Anders Carlson from Sweden after Pekka Rantanen's Rs200 retires with a driveshaft failure. And now we come to the second heat with a very interesting lineup. Jukka Peltari with the 865 brake horsepower bi-turbo Porsche for Finland, with Dan Andersson for Sweden next to him on the line with his Rs200, and John Welsh debuting the Astra X-Track. Watch out at the back of the grid for Dagfinn Larsen with his 650 brake horsepower bi-turbo Metro for Norway. And as the lights go green, the Swede Dan Andersson gets left as Jukka Peltari from pole position and John Welsh tussle for the line at Spa. John Welsh gets enough lead to cut across and close the door on Peltari, but he has to fight to control the snaking cadet. He's followed by Peltari and Andersson, but Andersson goes wide into Chequers and comes under pressure from Larsen's Metro. Out of Chequers and through the old chicane, and the order is Welsh, Peltari, Andersson, Larsen, and then the Audi Quattro Mark Verheeke from Belgium. Onto the loose and sliding through Samson Curve, and John Welsh still leads in the cadet. The cadet's making its Croft debut following an impressive first race at Cadwell Park earlier in the month. He's still leading Jukka Peltari as they enter the Mad Hatters complex, and behind him the battle's still going on between the Rs200 and Larsen's Metro. Over the line and through the shuttle, and once again Britain has a commanding lead, this time in the hands of the vastly experienced John Welsh. But watch out for Jukka Peltari in second place, and then Dan Andersson getting the Rs200 very sideways out of the shuttle at third, and Larsen taking it even further with the Metro 6R4. Verheeke suddenly inheriting fourth place, but back to the race leader John Welsh as he exits the old chicane with an ever-increasing lead over Peltari and Andersson. Peltari's Porsche had clipped some tyres in the Mad Hatters complex, and his bonnet is now in the process of self-destructing. It doesn't seem to worry him too much, although I think I would have been a little bit bothered if I had £400 worth of Kevlar bonnet just disappearing. Exiting the Mad Hatters complex, and John Welsh now seems to have an unassailable lead as he powers down the finish straight and through the shuttle. But the conditions on the tarmac are very frosty, and the car twitches slightly as it approaches Spa and Chequers. John's in no danger of losing his heat, but he still needs as fast a time as possible to gain a good grid position for the next heats. He also knows that he'll gain no points at all if he doesn't finish. And through the chicane for the last time, and John Welsh looks set to add another 5 points to the British total. As he bounces across the loose surfaces and on his way through Samson Curve, the X-Track performs beautifully after a few minor handling problems during practice. He then goes round the tight right and then left of the Mad Hatter's complex, and John Welsh emerges as a clear leader from the chasing Scandinavians to chalk up yet another victory for the Brits. But just watch out, in these poor low light conditions, John Welsh doesn't appear to notice the checkered flag. Continues at full speed through the shuttle, through checkers, and then suddenly sees the flag marshals running round in confusion at the entrance to Spa. He managed to anchor up in the nick of time, but tremendous win for John Welsh, ahead of Jukka Peltari in the 860 brake horsepower Porsche, whilst Dagfinn Larsen eventually claimed third in front of Dan Anderson's Ford Rs200. Mark Verheeke finished fifth and won Belgium's first points.
In sixth position at the moment, but Peltari, his bodywork still flailing, continues to hold it.
And on to Heat 3 with Timo Virtanen from Finland, with the Audi Quattro A2 lined up again alongside European champion Ole Arnesen with his Audi Quattro Sport for Sweden. Britain's represented by number 23, Trevor Hopkins, with his Shell Oils Ford RS200, whilst Kenny McKinstry will be trying to regain Irish points with his four-wheel drive Ford Escort. And with 1500 brake horsepower all rising to maximum revs, the cars leave the line, with Trevor Hopkins making a superb start from the outside of the front row to lead the battling Quattros into Spa Corner. Behind them, McKinstry's Escort inherits fourth place from the waltzing Alpine Renault of Eddie Nutz. Out of checkers and onto the chicane, it's Britain leading once again through Trevor Hopkins from Sweden's Ole Arnesen and Finland's Timo Virtanen. And onto Samson Curve, and the battling Quattros can make no impression upon the race leader Trevor Hopkins, as the RS200 leads into Mad Hatter's complex for the first time, followed by Ole Arnesen, Timo Virtanen and Kenny McKinstry in an excellent fourth position for Ireland. And it's through the complex and onto the finish straight to complete the first lap, with Trevor Hopkins pulling away from Ole Arnesen, who's coming under increasing pressure from the Finn Virtanen as the cars race through the shuttle. And into Spa for the second time, and it's Trevor Hopkins with a useful lead over Arnesen and Virtanen, but watch out for McKinstry, he's closing fast in fourth place. This is now a four-car race with these cars well clear of the rest of the field. And as they come out of checkers, Hopkins leads, but would you believe McKinstry's making a move up the inside of the two Quattros to take second place. Out in front, it's Trevor Hopkins, probably having his best drive for a long time, particularly when you consider the quality of the opposition. And towards the Mad Hatter's complex, Hopkins is in complete control of this race, and it looks like 3 out of 3 for Britain. Trevor's still trying hard though, and as the cars leave the complex, the RS200 gets offline and throws up the dirt on the outside of the corner. But Hobby keeps his act together, whilst in second place McKinstry holds his second place ahead of the two Scandinavian champions. Through the shuttle and towards Spa, and Hopkins is obviously enjoying himself as he throws his RS200 sideways, with smoke pouring off the rear tyres as he applies the power. Through Checkers Corner, and as Hopkins makes his way up to the chicane, he passes Copperwood's stricken Volvo, the Norwegian car sidelined with a fuel pump failure. As the Volvo pulls off the track, in second place it's still Kenny McKinstry, the Irishman with the Sydney Meek-built Ford Escort four-wheel drive, still staying ahead of the battling Audi Quattros of Timo Virtanen and Ole Arnesen. But going up into Mad Hatter's complex, it's still Trevor Hopkins taking the corner to start the last lap with his Ford RS200, whilst ahead of him is just one more lap before Britain gets 3 out of 3. The Escort in second place now, trailing a little bit of smoke, or is it steam? Whichever, it doesn't seem to be slowing McKinstry down any, whilst Ole Arnesen's still having problems harnessing the 650 brake horsepower of that Audi Quattro Sport. But as he rounds checkers and makes his way up to the old chicane for the last time, Trevor Hopkins really seems to have his act together. Trevor's had a few development problems with the Ford Rs200, but the big man from Ashford in Kent, as ever, stayed loyal to the Ford marque, even though he had to take some time out during the 1987 season to carry out a major engine development work. In second place, that fantastic drive from Kenny McKinstry, still keeping him ahead of the two Audi Quattros of Vatanen and Arneson. McKinstry's Clubman spec Escort here, some 200 brake horsepower down on the two 5-cylinder Audis. And into the Mad Hatters complex for the last time, and Kenny McKinstry looks set to pick up Ireland's first points of the meeting. But it's Trevor Hopkins, the red and white Rs200, taking the checkered flag for Britain. Maximum points and 3 wins out of 3 races for the British Rallycross team. Second place is an Irish benefit for Kenny McKinstry with that brilliant drive in the little Ford Escort 4-wheel drive ahead of Timo Vatanen's long-wheelbase Audi Quattro for Finland. Fourth place was a distant Ole Arneson, a little bit upset about the handling of the short-wheelbase Audi Quattro on the fast Croft circuit, whilst fifth place was taken by the Belgian car of Eddie Nuts, the Alpine Renault, scoring the first points for the Belgian team. And the fourth heat brings Britain's greatest challenge yet. On pole position we've got the twice European champion Matti Alamäki with the fearsome Lancia Delta S4. Next to him Rolf Nielsen with the black Ford Rs200 for Sweden. Whilst on the outside of the front row, Dimi Mavropoulos represents Britain with the Audi Quattro Sport. As lights go to green, can the 650 brake horsepower of the Audi Quattro Sport be used to good effect? The cars leave the line and Matti Alamäki uses the traction of the Lancia Delta to blast away into an early lead. Behind him, Dimi Mavropoulos and Rolf Nielsen as the rest of the field stream round in pursuit. Round checkers and it's Alamäki from Mavropoulos and Nielsen. Through the old chicane and it's Finland from Britain and Sweden with the bi-turbo Porsche of Ludo Stoikers in fourth place for Belgium. And it's across to the loose of Samson curve with the Alamäki looking set to break the early grip of Britain, but Mavropoulos is hanging on in second place. The overall position in the results at the moment is that Britain lead Finland, Sweden and Norway by 8 clear points. But it's Alamäki firmly in the lead as they leave the Mad Hatter complex, even though he runs wide onto the infield in the Lancia Delta S4 before getting the power down to lead the field through the shuttle and towards Spa. And it's Finland leading through Alamäki for the first time in today's event. Round Spa, and Alamäki's absolutely on the limit, having to stand hard on the brakes in order to get the Lancia round checkers. Behind him, Mavropoulos 2 is right on the limit, while tucked in third place is Nielsen's black Rs200 for Sweden. Through the old chicane and it's Alamäki right out in front now, still ahead of the Quattro and the Rs200. The interesting sounds of the turbocharged and supercharged Lancia Delta there, hissing and popping as it goes through Samson's. Followed by the distinctive 5-cylinder beat of the Audi Quattro Sport, again with a chirruping worstgate on the turbocharger. Starting the last lap, Alamäki again sliding onto the infield, but with 650 brake horsepower on the Lancia Delta S4, managing to stay well in the lead. And once again sliding the car through the Spa and Chequers complex. The Lancia Delta, a little bit difficult to handle right on the limit, but it's certainly quick when it's running properly. Through the chicane for the last time and on his way across the loose surface, Alamäki using the full 650 brake horsepower of this twin-cam Lancia turbocharged and supercharged engine. To Samson into Mad Hatters, and the Alamäki has an unchallenged lead at the front of the field, but it's only going to close the overall gap on Britain by 1 point as Mavropoulos is still in second position. As he comes through Mad Hatters for the last time, Alamäki is still leading for Finland as the sun begins to set and darkness creeps in on the Croft circuit. But as Alamäki takes his first win for Finland, in second place is Dimi Mavropoulos for Great Britain with the Audi Quattro Sport. Third place is taken by the Swede, Rolf Nielsen with the Ford Rs200, whilst a similar Rs200 of Tor Home for Norway takes fourth place. Germany gains fifth place, its first points of the competition with Peter Roerig's Audi 80 Quattro. But in overall honours for the Internations Cup, it's still Britain out in front, leading Finland and Sweden overall. And as local driver Michael Shield warms his tyres for his toughest race ever, we come to Heat 5, the final point-scoring heat of Saturday. And on pole position we've got Seppo Niittymaki, the current European champion with his Peugeot. Alongside him, Michael Shield with that 400 horsepower 6R4, which is a native, literally, of Croft circuit. On the outside of him, Michael Nordstrom from Sweden with the Ford Rs200, whilst watch out for Harold Martinson with the Grand Prix engine BMW M3 four-wheel drive. Also keep an eye out for Paul Kumpen from Belgium with the Porsche 911 bi-turbo four-wheel drive. And as the engine revs rise, the question is, can Michael Shield use his local knowledge and enthusiasm to beat the European champions, Seppo Niittymaki, off the line? But it doesn't appear so, as Niittymaki uses the tremendous power of the 205 T16 to go into an early lead ahead of Michael Nordstrom and Michael Shield. Round Spa, it's Niittymaki from Nordstrom and Shield. Finland, Sweden and Britain once again 1, 2, 3. Rounding checkers in the 205 T16 of the European champions, leading from the black Rs200 of Nordstrom, with local lad Mike Shield securely in third place. Through the old chicane, and the Metro is now under the spoiler of the Rs200, whilst Finland's still in the lead. Into the Mad Hatters complex, and it's Niittymaki, but Michael Shields now up into second place ahead of Michael Nordstrom. And as the cars leave Mad Hatters for the first time, it's Seppo Niittymaki who runs wide onto the infield, but puts the power down and stays ahead, whilst Michael Shields stays ahead of Michael Nordstrom with the Ford Rs200 Metro battle. Round Spa, it's Seppo Niittymaki leading from Michael Shield, Michael now pulling clear of Nordstrom. In fourth place, it's still Paul Kumpen with the Porsche 911 bi-turbo, ahead of Harold Martinson's BMW. Harold suffering from a broken gearbox on the car, but still continuing without fourth gear. And Mike Shield having a very promising drive. The Seppo Niittymaki flying, but being unable to drop Michael Shield's challenge. It's a very promising drive for this 20-year-old driver. Just think, he only actually legally passed his driving test 2.5 years ago. And into and around the Mad Hatters complex, and once again Niittymaki slides wide onto the infield at the exit of the corner, but he still has the traction to power right over loose at the finishing straight. And Niittymaki powers through the shuttle and into Spa. Smoke pouring from the Peugeot's rear tyres as he enjoys the handling of this car right on the limit. Once again through checkers, and the car getting very sideways indeed and quite close to the tyre wall as he makes his way up to the old chicane. And one spectator who'd be more nervous than most as he got so close to that tyre wall would be the Norwegian Terje Ski. Terje is actually buying this car off Seppo at the end of this season, as Seppo is intending to retire from the sport of rallycross. Having now paid his deposit, he's very interested indeed in getting it delivered in one piece. And there seem to be few doubts about that, as Seppo Niittymaki comes out of Mad Hatters to start the last lap. The car's sliding a little bit onto the loose again, but the power and the traction of that car dragging it literally, physically back onto the start-finish straight. And as he comes through Spa and checkers for the last time, Niittymaki's not taking any chances, driving a very smooth, very even race to get maximum points for Finland. In second place, a very mature and steady drive, but also very quick indeed from Michael Shield to take second place for Great Britain. But spare a thought for the poor Danish driver, Flemming Hjerstedt, in his two-wheel drive Porsche 911 Carrera, which Niittymaki actually lapped in the closing stages of this race. If it shows how much the turbocharged four-wheel drive cars have come on in the last few years, because a car very similar to this actually held the fastest time ever at Croft until 3 years ago. But Michael Shield tucks in behind the Porsche, deciding not to take any risks and to keep his second place well and truly intact. But Seppo Niittymaki takes the checkered flag for Finland in his Peugeot 205 T16, still unbeaten at Croft. Michael Shield second for Britain, finishing behind the Danish Porsche, which is a lap down. Third place goes to Michael Nordstrom of Sweden with the Ford Rs200. While Niittymaki's finished with a 10-second lead over Michael Shield, the British driver's points score is still very useful to his team. Behind Michael Nordstrom, the Porsche of Paul Kumpen took fourth place for Belgium, and Harold Martinson was forced to take an unfortunate fifth place with that broken gearbox in the BMW M3. But the point score at the end of the first day's racing shows Great Britain at the head of the field, leading Finland by 6 points. Sweden's in third place, followed by Norway in fourth, while Kenny McKinstry's almost single-handedly raised Ireland to fifth. Belgium and Germany are both rather disappointed with their sixth and seventh places, and sadly Denmark scored a duck with no point at all on the very first day. Sunday brings a change in the weather at Croft from the bright, cold, sub-zero but very clear weather of the Saturday. We got to a dull, freezing mist on the Sunday morning, causing the organisers to worry quite a lot about visibility in the later runs. The scheduling problems aren't helped when the first race of the day is red flagged after Michael Nordstrom's Rs200 is nudged in this incident by Yuka Peltari's Porsche. Sadly, Will Gollop's Demon start is wasted. This race will be rerun later. For Heat 8, we've got Michael Shield on pole position yet again with the red British Metro 6R4. Outside of him is Rolf Nielsen from Sweden with the black Ford Rs200. Whilst an unusual car on the front row of the grid is number 54, Peter Bohm from Germany with the Porsche 911 Turbo. But watch out also for the second row position of Pekka Rantanen from Finland with that Ford Rs200. The lights go green and Peter Bohm's left as Rolf Nielsen gets away first, followed by Michael Shield. Towards Spa, it's Rolf Nielsen from Michael Shield with Pekka Rantanen having come through from the back row of the grid into third place, and Francois Monton's fourth in John Smith's X-Track. Out of the bloom at checkers, and it's Rolf Nielsen from Michael Shield. Mike closing on the more powerful Rs200 as the cars go through the old chicane, followed by Pekka Rantanen and Francois Monton. Onto the loose of Samson Curve, and it's the order's first Sweden, second Britain, third Finland, fourth Belgium, fifth Germany and sixth Ireland, with Monton there in fourth place in the ex-Martin Schenker European Championship winning X-Track Escort. And round Mad Hatter's complex, and Mike Shield eventually gets the better line to take Rolf Nielsen at the lead. Out of the complex, Nielsen slides wide and comes under pressure from Rantanen, but the cars race over the line to complete the first lap. And through the shuttle, it's Michael Shield leading from the Rs200s of Rolf Nielsen and Pekka Rantanen. Nielsen's on the absolute limit as he chases the 6R4 in front of him, seemingly annoyed at his mistake in the complex on the previous lap, with Rantanen still third. Out of the long sweeping checkers corner, and Mike Shield still leads, ahead of Nielsen's black Ford Rs200. Rantanen's now putting the black car under pressure, and the telltale smoke signs of the turbo oil seal failure starting to appear at the tail end of that dark-coloured Rs200. But onto Samson Curve, and Nielsen's trying too hard again. He gets the Rs200 out of line as Mike Shield slides the 6R4 over the tarmac and into the complex. Through the complex, and Rolf Nielsen's paying for that mistake and coming under even more pressure from Rantanen as Mike Shield gets away to lead the race. Across the line and through the shuttle, and once again Mike demonstrates his driving ability as he leads the more powerful Evolution-engined Rs200s of Nielsen and Rantanen. Once again through Spa and checkers, and Mike Shield's tidy style there, drawing a good lead now ahead of the two battling Rs200s, with Nielsen's car beginning to smoke quite heavily. And up to the old chicane again, and Mike Shield seems to have this race well under control, the 20-year-old driver from Croft, really proving his ability on his home circuit. And up into Samson, and the Rs200 is now getting a little bit more spread out, and that smoke screen doesn't seem to be stopping Nielsen from trying very hard indeed. Rantanen's still on the limit too as the car leaps over the curbs at Mad Hatter's, but Mike Shield crosses the line to start his last lap. And the Metro's sounding crisper than ever as it blasts down through the shuttle and into Spa and checkers for the last time. Mike holding a very comfortable lead now of the chasing Scandinavians as he makes his way up to the old chicane, and Mike's really driving a faultless race. He wondered what could be better than coming second to the European champion in his previous heat. Well, there's only one way to go, that's up, and Mike's now got a lead over the best in Scandinavia. And onto Samson Curve with the checkered flag inside. Mike's still leading with the charging Rs200s of Nielsen and Rantanen unable to make any impression. And that smoking Rs200 of Nielsen's still going strong, but Rantanen really is throwing out everything he can now to try and catch the black car. But ahead of them, the great British driver, Mike Shield, crosses the line to increase his country's lead and has his own personal celebration spin. Behind him, Rolf Nielsen holds on to take second place for Sweden, while Pekka Rantanen takes finish honours in third place. A rather distant fourth place was taken by Peter Bomb for Germany with the Porsche 911 Turbo, whilst fifth and scoring the first points of the weekend for Denmark was John Christensen with the VW Golf GTI. And now on to Heat 9, with pole position man Matti Alamäki from Finland with that Lancia Delta S4. On the outside of him is Kenny McKinstry from Ireland with the four-wheel drive Ford Escort, whilst on the outside of him is Ole Arnesson, 4 times European champion from Sweden with the Audi Quattro Sport. Sadly, Britain isn't contending this round. John Welsh fails to make the start line after a driveline failure. With Welsh missing from the front row of the grid, Matti Alamäki blasts away in the lead, hotly pursued by Arnesson's Audi and McKinstry's Escort. Meanwhile at the back, Jorgensen's Porsche Turbo takes Spa corner, leading heavily on Torsten Aren's VW Golf. Then takes a bite at Nerby's Metro going into checkers. Meanwhile, Alamäki's Lancia Delta is well in command of the race, ahead of Arnesson's Audi Quattro and McKinstry's Escort, whilst in fifth place, Jorgensen's Porsche is now looking very second-hand indeed. But through Samson's and on that long sweeping right-hander on the dust, Arnesson's catching the Lancia Delta, but look at the state of that Porsche at the back of the field. But Alamäki's Lancia Delta is well in command of the race now, Arnesson just being able to catch him but do nothing more. Let's just admire the car control there that's taken these two drivers to 6 European Championship victories. Once again, the cars blast through Checkers Corner and on the way up through to the old chicane. The Lancia is sliding and twitching on this very frosty surface, the temperature now well below zero and ice patches beginning to form. And as Alamäki makes his way through Samson, his efforts have come to nothing. Frantic flag wavings going on at the Mad Hatters complex after Torsten Aren's Volkswagen Golf Synchros launched itself over the tyre wall at the shuttle. The driver luckily has escaped unhurt, but the car's landed in the pits road. Alamäki has it all to do again. The organisers rapidly assemble the cars for Heat 10, the 2 reruns now really adding to their fears of failing light, with pole position being taken by Seppo Niittymaki for Finland with the Peugeot T16. Outside of him, Sven Lestander for Sweden with the Audi Quattro Sport, while representing Britain, Dimir Mavropoulos, the Blackbird with the other Audi Quattro Sport. And as the marshal indicates the lights are on red, the engine revs rise, the wastegates start to chatter and the cars leave the line. Niittymaki makes a superb start away from Mavropoulos, whilst Lestander slots into third place ahead of the Norwegian Ford Rs200 of Tor Home. As they make the way into checkers, it appears that Niittymaki already has it all under control, but a battle's already raging between the 2 similar Audi Quattro Sports. As the cars move up into the old chicane, it's interesting to compare the nimble handling of the Peugeot with the very powerful but rather unwieldy Audi Quattros. But it's the European champion, Niittymaki, already in command, the Peugeot 205 bouncing through Samson, followed by the 2 Quattros, while at the tail end of the field there's an interesting battle developing between the Porsche of Morten Andersen and the 2-wheel drive Chevette of Bertie Law, the Irishman. And at the exit of Mad Hatters, Mavropoulos begins to run wide and lets Lestander through into second place, the Swedish driver putting on one of the best performances of his team. But Mavropoulos is still secure in third place, whilst out in the front, Niittymaki is demonstrating his superiority by already drawing out a 5-second lead. Seppo Niittymaki is the first and only driver to bring the Peugeot 205 T16 into Rallycross. These very powerful and very fragile cars have often proved a little too fragile for this very demanding sport. But he's already proved his reliability during the European Championship this year. Our best driver, Will Gollop, only managed to finish 4th to this car, right through the whole championship series. But Lestander follows him through the Mad Hatters complex. Is he pulling in a little bit of the gap? Certainly Niittymaki is right on the limit, the car running wide and throwing up the dirt on the outside of the start-finish straight. But just watch this car control, balancing the car on the power all the way through Spa and Checkers. Certainly the development work Niittymaki's carried out on behalf of Peugeot on the T16s really proved to be of value. The the car already looking as if it's going to be unbeaten around the Croft circuit. In second place, Lestanders having a tremendous race too, the young Swedes matching Nitimäki's pace and justifying his promotion from the team reserve position. But as they approach Mad Hatters for the last time, it's Nitimäki in the lead while Lestander has to make do with second place. Mavropoulos holds off Torholm's Rs200 to take third place for Britain, but once again, Nitimäki's unbeaten at the Croft circuit. So Finland scores a maximum with 4 points going for Lestander's effort for Sweden, 3 points go to Dimmu Mavropoulos while Torholm takes 2 points for Norway. The Germans score 1 further point with Adolf Heinz result, the 1986 German champion, in 5th place with his Audi Quattro. And on to Heat 11 with Trevor Hopkins on pole position with the Shell Oils red and white Ford Rs200 for Great Britain. Outside of him we've got Finland with Timo Virtanen, the Finnish champion, rarely seen outside his native country with his Audi Quattro long wheelbase. Out on the outside of the grid, Harold Martinsson, nursing 4th gear with the BMW after a number of problems. But watch out for Anders Karlsson for Sweden with the Audi Quattro Sport on the second row of the grid. And a slightly longer than normal delay between the lights going from red to green is causing some drivers problems. Karlsson in particular having to ride the clutch of his Quattro, which isn't advisable with 650 brake horsepower. But it's Hopkins who makes a superb start to leave Virtanen and Martinsson into Spa. In 4th place, Ludo Stoikers from Belgium uses all the track and some of the gravel trap to get through with his bi-turbo Porsche. But leading up to the chicane for the first time, Trevor Hopkins is needing all his skill and experience as 4 times British champion to hold off Timo Virtanen's challenge. Timo's a driver little known outside his native Finland, but we can now see how he's won the Finnish championship no less than 6 times in the past 8 years. And going into the Mad Hatters complex, Martinsson's problems with the gearbox don't seem to be too bad, although he's now experiencing a number of major problems with the wrong choice of tyres. And leading Mad Hatters, it's Hopkins jumping for joy over the curbs, still ahead of Virtanen. In 3rd place it's Martinsson, and in 4th place that Audi Quattro who's overcome his slipping clutch of Anders Karlsson. But blasting through the shuttle, it's Hopkins and Virtanen, ahead of Martinsson, who clips the curbs with the BMW and takes an unscheduled ride. But Martinsson isn't alone in being caught out by the frosty track. Next to make a mistake's Hopkins, who misjudges the chicane. He spins away his lead and a furious Trevor Hopkins rejoins in 4th place behind Ludo Stoiker's Porsche. And on his way into Mad Hatters, Virtanen seems to have a secure lead, and he's going to have to work very hard indeed to stay ahead of the more powerful Audi Quattro Sport of Karlsson. But at the front it's Virtanen crossing the line to lead at the start of the 3rd lap. Long wheelbase Audi Quattro certainly seems to be more predictable to control through the shuttle and round spar and checkers than the short wheelbase Audi Quattro of Karlsson. And it's up to the chicane while Karlsson's fire-breathing Quattro is now coming under pressure from Stoiker's Porsche and Hopkins' Rs200. But it's Virtanen at the front, the 40-year-old from Vantaa in Finland, actually having to prepare this car himself. No work support for this driver. And Karlsson there holding a secure 2nd place now, but Stoikers is becoming increasingly pressurised by Hopkins' Ford Rs200. And as they slide across the finish line to take the last lap, it's Virtanen for Finland, ahead of Karlsson's Audi Quattro for Sweden, Stoiker's Belgian Porsche getting the best results for Belgium so far, and Hopkins' British Rs200. But it's the battle for 3rd place that's really got the crowd on their feet now. Can Hopkins' better handling Rs200 make up for the over 600 brake horsepower of the bi-turbo Porsche? And leaving checkers, it's for the last time, Hopkins is really piling on the pressure. And onto the chicane, and Hopkins eventually finds a way past Stoiker's car as his windscreen fills in at the exit. But up into Mad Hatters for the last time, and it's an Audi 1-2 with Virtanen still ahead of the Swedish Quattro Sport of Karlsson. Hopkins has now a secure 3rd place, Stoiker's unfortunate Porsche having not really recovered from that windscreen incident. But across the line, and it's Virtanen taking a further 5 points for Finland, But Sweden's also now in the running for overall results thanks to Carlsson's efforts. British honours upheld by Hopkins in third, while Stoiker's retirement gives fourth place to the German Porsche of Hans Kirchhoff. And so it's on to Heat 12, a consolation race at the end of the second set of timed runs, but vitally needed for those pole positions for the third runs. And on pole position for this is Mauno Jokinen from Finland with the bi-turbo Porsche four-wheel drive. Outside of him is Dan Andersson from Sweden with the Ford Rs200. On the very outside row of the grid is Robert Verreken from Belgium with the unusual four-wheel drive Volkswagen Golf. But watch out at the back of the grid for Mark Renissen representing Britain with the Ford Rs200 running a normal standard rally engine developing just 350 brake horsepower. And as the lights go green, Jokinen uses the 720 brake horsepower of his Porsche to very good effect, blasting off the line ahead of Andersson's Rs200 and into checkers. But just watch out for Renissen. He's come through from the back of the grid and then calmly drives right round the outside of them to lead on the way up to the chicane. And into the old chicane for the first time, and it's British champion Mark Renissen leading the Finn Jokinen and the Swede Dan Andersson. Onto the loose of the sweeping Samson curve for the first time, and already the Rs200 is well clear of the Porsche of Jokinen and Rs200 of Dan Andersson, which is running about another 100 brake horsepower over the top of Renissen's standard motor. Into Mad Hatter's complex, and the cars close momentarily, under braking, but Mark Renissen sliding out of the tight corners onto the infield, getting the power down well to complete his first lap. Over the line and through the shuttle, and Mark Renissen throws the car sideways in order to power around Spa in very spectacular style. Smoke pouring from the rear wheels as the car fights for grip. Into checkers, and the Rs200 lifts a wheel as Mark clips the curbs in order to get a tight line. Sideways out of checkers as Mark Renissen keeps the power on as he races towards the old chicane for the second time. And it looks as if Mark's turning this heat into a demonstration drive for the DSRM team. And back onto the loose of the Samson curve at over 100 miles an hour, and our local heroes once again driving the perfect line as he pulls well clear of the rest of the field. Off the loose and onto rough tarmac, and Renissen throws the car into the Mad Hatter's complex of corners. Mark's fighting with the wheel in order to maintain his momentum through these very tight curves, but it's out of the complex and down the finish straight at halfway distance, and Mark's already leading the rest of the field by over 10 seconds. Through the shuttle, and once again Mark throws the car absolutely sideways at the entrance to Spa, with smoke pouring from the tyres of the Rs200 as the power's applied. Into checkers, and Mark again has the perfect line in order to keep the power on. Sideways out of checkers, and the Rs200 races towards the old chicane with Mark in absolute command on this, his home circuit. Through the chicane, and Mark's in no danger of losing this heat if he can avoid any mechanical problems. Even though this is the consolation race for second runs and no Internations Cup points are at stake, the time is vitally important as it will determine Mark's grid position for his next heat on the third runs. And Mark once again throws the supercar absolutely sideways as he enters the Mad Hatter's complex, to the delight of the vast Croft crowd. And it's through the complex, and Mark rides the curbs before powering onto the loose and down the finish straight to start his last lap. And through the shuttle and towards Spa, and over 100 miles an hour, Mark once again demonstrates his trademark as the car slides sideways over the tarmac at in excess of a 3-figure speed. Round checkers, and the Rs200 heads towards the old chicane for the last time in this heat, with Mark Renissen mixing speed with spectacular driving in order to entertain the record attendance at Croft today. It's onto the loose and through the Samson curve for the last time with less than half a lap remaining, and Mark's going to record an easy victory for Britain over the young Scandinavians behind him. Once again he throws the car sideways into the complex in order to maintain the engine on turbo boost through the tight corners before sliding wild onto the infield, powering over the loose, and taking the check and flag at the end of a perfect demonstration drive. Mark takes a very easy victory indeed ahead of the Porsche of Jokinen and the Rs200 of Dan Andersson. And now onto the rerun of Heat 7. This was the race that was stopped after Nordstrom was pushed into the tyre barriers at Spa Corner on the first lap. On pole position we've got Will Gollop representing Britain with the Metro 6R4. Outside of him, Michael Nordstrom, the unfortunate chap who did go off. On the outside of the front row, Jukka Peltari representing Finland with the 850 brake horsepower bi-turbo Porsche. But watch out for Dag Finn Larsen. His Metro 6R4 has 2 turbochargers and 650 brake horsepower. Once again, the delay between the light going from red to green is causing problems, and Nordstrom cooks his clutch on the line and gets left. The superior traction of Gollop's Metro 6R4 overcomes the power of the Porsche, whilst Eddie Nuts in the Alpine Renault is already suffering visibility problems. But it's up into the chicane for the first time, and Gollop's already well in command of the race, with Peltari in a secure second place on that bi-turbo four-wheel drive Porsche. If you're interested, it's for sale. Offers in the region of 28,000. But well in command, it's Will Gollop bouncing across Samson Curve for the first time. Second place, Peltari. The reason he's selling the car? He's a student. He's got to go back to university next year. Third place, it's Nordstrom's Rs200, coming under further pressure from that turbocharged 6R4 of Dagfinn Larsen. But as they cross the line for the first time, it's Will Gollop well in command ahead of Peltari's Porsche and the Swedish Rs200. The Metro's sounding beautiful as it crackles its way down through Shuttle and then gets very sideways, almost as sideways as Mark Rennison on the way through Spa. Will making the most of the agile handling of the Metro, plus the instant response of the 3-litre V6 engine. This makes the Metro far easier to control than the more powerful but far twitchier Porsche and Rs200. But on the way through the chicane for the second time, and it's Gollop well in command now, Peltari being able to do nothing about the flying Metro 6R4, and Will making the most of his European Championship experience as he slides through Samson for the second time. Will actually finish fourth in the European Championship this year, which is a very good effort indeed in the first season in Europe. Peltari's still in second place, but he's coming under further pressure now from Michael Nordstrom, whilst in fourth place, Dagfinn Larsen still trying very hard indeed with that turbocharged 6R4. But as Will crosses the line, he may be making it look easy with the 6R4, but watch him fight to stay in control as he clips some curbs at the Shuttle. But Will keeps the car on the track and in the lead as he makes his way through Chequers. The Metro then blasts its way up to the chicane with a tremendous lead now, almost 10 seconds ahead of Peltari's Porsche. Nordstrom's still piling on the pressure in third place, and Larsen's still hanging in there with the Metro in fourth. But leaving the chicane, it's Will Gollop well in command of this race for Great Britain with the red and blue mobile-backed 6R4, but there's a tremendous battle developing behind him for second and third places. Peltari's Porsche still holds second, but Michael Nordstrom's got visibility problems with the Rs200, and Larsen's Metro tries to take advantage. The Metro is alongside on the entrance to Mad Hatter's complex, but Larsen then runs wide and Nordstrom tries to dive back down the inside. The two cars take the rest of the complex side by side before leaping the curbs, and Larsen gets the advantage at the exit. Mind you, it's not over yet because Larsen nearly loses it as he flies over the curbs in the Shuttle. Larsen manages to hold it all together to keep it in third place, but at the front it's the other Metro, Will Gollop, well in command as he flies through Samson and Mad Hatters to take the checkered flag. But it's all not over yet because Will Gollop still needs to use every bit of his car control as the car gets very sideways after clipping the curbs in Mad Hatters. But both Will's driving skill and the handling of the Metro gets him out of it as he takes the checkered flag by over 14 seconds from the Scandinavian opposition. And second place is taken by Peltari's Porsche, while Dagfinn Larsen takes third for Norway, giving them vitally needed points. The hard-trying Michael Nordstrom still gets fourth place for Sweden, adding to their points total and keeping them in contention. But at the Croft circuit, the capacity crowd of over 15,000, a record for Croft, get what they came to see, a win for Great Britain and for Will Gollop. And on now to the second rerun of the day, Heat 9, the race that was stopped after Torsten Arendt's horrifying accident at the Shuttle. And on the front row of the grid we've got Matti Alamäki from Finland with the Lancia Delta S4, but watch out at the back of the field for Ole Arnesen from Sweden with the Audi Quattro Sport. Ireland's Kenny McKinstry is also on the front row of the grid after his efforts in the first heat, but he's got no answer to Matti Alamäki, who promptly blasts off the line to take the lead, while Ole Arnesen storms through from the back row of the grid to demote the Porsche bi-turbo Paul Kumpen to third place at the entrance to Spa Corner. As the field streams through Chequers, an interesting battle's developing between McKinstry's Escort for Ireland and Nerby's Norwegian Metro 6R4. But at the front it's the Lancia of Alamäki already well ahead of Arnesen, whilst McKinstry's made a tremendous move to take third place by the entrance to the chicane. Sliding across the loose through Samson and into Mad Hatters is the twice European champion Matti Alamäki, still ahead of the 4 times champion Ole Arneson, but the Swede is closing fast, followed by the 3-cornered fight between McKinstry, Kumpen and Nerby. Cars leave Mad Hatters and cross the line to start lap 2. It's Matti Alamäki from Ole Arneson who's making a fantastic effort. The Audi closing right up on the Lancia as they blast through the shuttle and into Spa. The battle of the champions is definitely on. The cars arrive at Chequers and McKinstry's consolidated his 3rd place, but everybody's attention's on the battle for the lead as Arneson tries everything he knows to catch the flying Finn Alamäki. Into the chicane and Arneson throws the big Audi over the curbs in an effort to get the power onto the track, that split second ahead of the Lancia. Through Samson, and it seems as if the Lancia is the faster car over this section of track, but again the Audi catches up under braking for the Mad Hatters complex. And in Mad Hatters, Arneson, the Swedish Rallycross and ice racing champion, tries to make his move. He aims for a tight line at the exit, but controlling the 700 brake horsepower quattro is very difficult indeed and the car gets very sideways. Alamäki still in the lead at the start of the 3rd lap. Through the shuttle and both cars are on the absolute limit round Spa corner. Arneson's gaining ground, but the Delta's faster on that long sweeping section from Chequers to the chicane. Arneson knows that he's trying everything he can to stay in contention with that flying Lancia. Arriving at the chicane and Alamäki's got a comfortable lead, but Alamäki once again throws that fearsome Audi Quattro over the curbs in an attempt to stay in contention. Across the loose and through Samson's, the 2 drivers are trying every trick in the book to gain an advantage as they approach Mad Hatters and the start of the last lap, with Alamäki still in command. But once again, Arneson's trying the tight exit from the Mad Hatters complex, and this time it works. Alamäki slides wide onto the soft shell. Arneson has the better traction and blasts through to lead into the shuttle. But Alamäki isn't going to give up that easily. The Finn, furious at his mistake, flings the Lancia sideways through Spa, an all-or-nothing effort to bring him back into contention by Chequers. On the run-up to the chicane, the Lancia is tucked right underneath the Quattro's huge rear wing, but Alamäki can't find a way past the snaking Audi. It's across the loose and through Samson for the last time, and it's still the Swede Arneson leading the Finn Alamäki into Mad Hatters. We can only speculate as to whether if Britain's John Welsh had made it to the start line, he could have matched the pace of these 2 Scandinavian champions. Alamäki's still keeping the pressure on Arneson right to the checkered flag, but the Swede makes no mistake, setting the Audi up perfectly at the exit of Mad Hatters and blasting across the line to score maximum points for Sweden in one of the most exciting races ever seen at Croft. Matti Alamäki has to settle for 2nd place in the Lancia Delta S4, while Andreas Nerby takes a distant 3rd place over Norway in his Metro 6R4, having passed the club specification Ford Escort of Kenny McKinstry on the last lap. 5th place was taken for Belgium by Paul Kumpen. He, like all the Porsche drivers, finding their car's handling characteristics very hard work on the fast and slippery Croft circuit. At the end of the 2nd runs, the results show Britain leading by just 1 point from Finland, while Sweden's in a comfortable 3rd place ahead of Norway, Germany, Ireland, Belgium and Denmark. And now to the 3rd and final run-offs. Only the top 5 teams at the end of these heats will contest the finals. As we come to Heat 13, we've got a personal battle. Can Seppo Niittymaki keep his unbeaten record here at Croft in his retirement year with the Finnish Peugeot 205 T16? Trying to stop him is Will Gollop from Britain with the Metro 6R4. From Sweden's a very strong contender, Rolf Nilsson with the Ford Rs200. And watch out for that BMW M3 of Harold Martinson, although he's still suffering from gearbox problems. And there's none of the old-fashioned blipping of the throttle on the line as Seppo Niittymaki holds the engine right on the rev limiter and maximum boost. As the lights turn to red, then to green, and he makes a superb start, but matched by Will Gollop's Metro, which stays alongside the Peugeot all the way into Spa corner, whilst Nielsen and Francois Monton have battled for 3rd and 4th place, with Monton trying the inside line. Harold Martinson there in 5th, and Monton locking it up and throwing that 3rd place away. He's now down to 4th, but at the front it's 2 cars, the Peugeot 205 T16 of Seppo Niittymaki and Will Gollop's Metro 6R4. And through Samson for the first time, and it's the 205 T16 with a similar configuration but non-turbocharged 3-litre Metro in hot pursuit. Rolf Nielsen now has a secure third place, but it's the two mid-engine cars at the front of the grid, leaping over the curbs in Mad Hatters as they blast across the line to finish the first lap. And the extra 250 brake horsepower above Will Gollop's normal 400 is starting to show with the T16, but the agile handling of the Metro lets him get right alongside, and the nose almost running down the door of the Peugeot as they arrive at Chequers. Once again, Will gets the nose of the Metro alongside on the run up to the chicane, but the superior power of the turbo car keeps Niittymaki ahead. And as they exit the chicane, it's the turbocharged Peugeot that draws a little bit of a lead out, but it certainly seems what the Metro lacks in power, it certainly makes up for in its brakes and handling. And once again, Gollop really does reel that Peugeot in under braking for Mad Hatters. Both cars on their absolute limits, sliding and weaving and leaping the curbs in Mad Hatters as either driver tries to psych the other one out. But it's Niittymaki in the lead as they cross the finish line and start the third lap. The Peugeot again pulling out a little bit of a lead through the shuttle, but Will's trying everything he knows. And again sideways through Spa corner. Both cars on the absolute limit of handling, and Gollop again catching the Peugeot at the entrance to Chequers. And on the run up to the chicane, again the Peugeot draws out a little bit of a lead. Certainly it seems to have the advantage on this very fast circuit, but in the twitchy bits, Gollop catches up again and refuses to give an inch. And over the loose and through Samson, and Gollop this time's holding the Peugeot. Can he get down the inside on the way into Mad Hatters? And Niittymaki holds the inside line himself, blocking Gollop all the way round, but Will's still trying very hard indeed. But Seppo gets sideways off the line, but Gollop gets even more sideways and has to fight to control the Metro and loses a little bit of ground. And Niittymaki now blasts through the shuttle and both cars down to Spa for the last time. Both drivers absolutely on the limit. Niittymaki's determined not to give up that unbeaten record, and Gollop's determined to deprive him of it. And up to the chicane for the last time, and Niittymaki now does have a little bit of a cushion, can afford to relax somewhat. Across the loose for the last time, and it does appear that the Peugeot will maintain its unbeaten record here at Croft. And as they arrive at Mad Hatters, it's Seppo Niittymaki, the gentleman who's celebrating 21 years in motorsport this year. But Will Gollop's still flying behind him and is trying to push him into making a last-minute mistake. But the experienced Niittymaki holds it all together to take maximum points for Finland. Will Gollop takes second, and then there's a huge gap over 14 seconds before the next car appears. And that's the Swede, Rolf Nielsen, who just managed to stay ahead of Martinson's BMW to score a further 3 points for Sweden. But a tremendous battle and a tremendous victory for Seppo Niittymaki from Finland, here at Croft, only one meeting away from his retirement. And on now to heat 14, and in direct contrast to the very experienced Niittymaki, we've got a battle here between the young braves. On pole position, Sven Lestander from Sweden with the Audi Quattro Sport. Outside of him, Michael Shield from Britain with the Metro 6R4. And on the very outside of the front row, Jukka Peltari from Finland with the Porsche 911. All these gentlemen well under 30. And feeling rather old, we've also got Dagfinn Larsson, aged 36, with the bi-turbo Metro 6R4. But once again, the car's on the line, and can Mike Shield hold on to Croft's honour with the red 6R4? As the lights go to green, the power of the turbo cars really shows in this heat. Lestander's Quattro takes the lead, followed by Larsson's bi-turbo Metro from the second row of the grid, and Peltari's Porsche. Poor Mike Shield, with just 400 brake horsepower left in fourth place, he promptly gets savaged by Stoiker's Porsche, and for a short while parking spaces seem to be in demand at Chequers corner. But at the front it's Lestander, and he's having to work hard to stay ahead of the hard-charging Larsson. Mike Shield's now recovered and is getting Peltari firmly in his sights. As the leaders come through Samson, watch out in the background as Mike Shield dives down the inside to take the Porsche. And into Mad Hatters for the first time, the cars close up. Mike Shield now getting alongside Larsson's Metro, doing his best to depose the Norwegian car. And out of Mad Hatters, and the Audi Quattro now has a comfortable lead, but side-by-side motoring with a little bit of curve jumping before Larsson uses the extra 250 brake horsepower of his turbo car to get ahead of Shield going into the shuttle. As the battle goes down to Spa, Larsson gets the car very sideways indeed as he gets offline. Mike Shield catches up, but Peltari's back in there waiting in the wings too. But at the front it's all calm. Sven Lestander's now got a considerable lead with the Audi Quattro Sport. He's driving smoothly and quickly in order to get maximum points for Sweden. And across the loose and through Samson, the Audi Quattro rides the bumps well. Behind Lestander, the battle for second continues with the two Metros of Larsen and Shield, followed by Peltari's 860 brake horsepower Porsche, which isn't really able to use its power in these very slippery conditions. But at the front of the field, it's Lestander's Audi Quattro crossing the line to start the third lap. As the white Audi Quattro Sport blasts down through the shuttle and into Spa, just watch that car control and listen to the whistle and chirrup of the wastegate as the 700 brake horsepower is used to its maximum advantage. The battle for second place continues, Larsen's Metro still having the advantage over Mike Shield's normally aspirated example. But at the front, Sven Lestander controlling that Audi Quattro Sport, renowned as one of the trickiest but fastest cars in Rallycross. Lestander was originally the Swedish team reserve, but he was rapidly given a full team place when they found in practice he was faster than 4 times European champion Ollie Arneson. But watch out for that battle for second place. Larsen's Metro slides wide at the entrance to Mad Hatters and allows Mike Shield at last to get alongside. The two cars lean on each other on the second leg of Mad Hatters before Larsen does some blatant corner cutting to take second place. A couple of lengths behind, Mike Shield's very sideways indeed, but he battles his way down through the shuttle, not letting up an inch. Sadly, he overdoes it, clips the curbs and spins onto the infield. Mike recovers, but he does lose third place also to Jukka Peltari. A furious Michael Shield continues on his way, still in fourth place and still capable of getting some vitally needed points for the British team. But out at the front it's Sven Lestander on his last lap with the Audi Quattro Sport, making his way into Mad Hatters for the very last time. Lestander the real surprise at the Internations Cup, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this gentleman wearing the European Champions laurels in the next few years. But as Lestander takes the checkered flag, the battle for second place continues. All cars arrive at Mad Hatters together, and this time Larsen's under real pressure from Jukka Peltari's Porsche. Once again he gets out of it by blatant corner cutting and gains a few extra lengths lead. Meanwhile Michael Shield gets alongside Peltari and manages to take third place for Great Britain. Unseen by us in all the four-wheel drive excitement, a close battle's been occurring among the two-wheel drive cars. That was eventually won by the Porsche of Peter Bohm, who took 5th place, but just half a second ahead of Irishman Gerard Cregan's Ford Escort. Meanwhile, in the first 3 places, it's Sven Lestander for Sweden with the Audi Quattro, Dagfinn Larsen for Norway with the Metro 6R4 Turbo, and Mike Shield's normally aspirated car for Great Britain in 3rd place. And on to heat 15, with pole position being taken by Pekka Rantanen from Finland with the Rs200. Outside of him, Anders Karlsson from Sweden with the Audi Quattro Sport. Whilst on the very outside of the grid, once again, Andreas Neby from Norway with the normally aspirated blue and yellow Metro 6R4. Watch out too for Trevor Hopkins for Great Britain with the Ford Rs200. And don't forget Kenny McKinstry, the battling Irishman with his home-built Ford Escort 4-wheel drive. Once again, a lineup of over 2,000 brake horsepower on the grid here at Croft for the Internations Cup. And as the light goes to green, it's Trevor Hopkins who makes a superb start from the second row of the grid, but he can't quite match the power of Rantanen's Evolution engine. Neby understeers wide into the gravel trap, but manages to keep going, while McKinstry manages to nip through on the inside to take 3rd place. But as the leaders run up to the chicane, it's the battle of the Ford Rs200s, with Rantanen managing to stay ahead of Trevor Hopkins' similar car. Rantanen's car has the Revolution engine giving 650 brake horsepower, Hopkins only 500, and it shows across the Samson curve. Rantanen now pulling out a 3 or 4 car lengths lead over Hopkins, but Hopkins is pulling it back under braking for the Mad Hatters complex. Behind him's Karlsson with the Audi Quattro Sport, now putting Hopkins under a little bit of pressure through the Mad Hatters complex, while McKinstry's got that Escort up into 4th place. And it's Karlsson who's putting Hopkins under the real pressure now as they accelerate out of Mad Hatters and towards the shuttle. Hopkins copes well with the Audi Quattro's attempts to out-accelerate him, but clips the curbs at the entrance to the shuttle and goes flying. Into Spahn, it's Rantanen from Hopkins and Karlsson, but a terrific battle for 4th place continues with Neby and McKinstry. Neby's Metro slides wide at checkers and McKinstry dives down the inside and makes it into 4th place on his way up to the chicane. But at the front of the field, it's still Pekka Rantanen's Ford Rs200 ahead of Trevor Hopkins with his similar car. Rantanen's more powerful example again, pulling out a little bit of a distance through the Samson curve, but Hopkins is still well in command of second place. Through Mad Hatters, as the leaders prepare to start their third lap, it's the Rs200s of Rantanen and Hopkins, ahead now of the Ford Escort of Kenny McKinstry and Andreas Nurby's Metro, Carson having slowed on the loose section. But the battling pair here in third place, neither driver giving an inch. Through the shuttle and into Spa, as Pekka Rantanen passes the stationary Audi 80 Quattro of Peter Rohrig, he's got a comfortable lead, but the battling Hopkins and the Metro and Escort are never far behind. But it's Pekka Rantanen leading up into the chicane for the third time. The Rs200 just clipping the curbs at the entrance, but hardly moving the car, such as the suspension trouble on these Rallycross prepared examples. Once again, Hopkins is in hot pursuit and reeling the more powerful Rs200 Evolution in on the entrance to Mad Hatters. Now it appears Hopkins might have a chance. He hops the curbs at the exit to Mad Hatters, gets the power down earlier and almost pulls alongside Rantanen's Rs200. And certainly Hopkins is right on the limit, but disaster strikes as he clips the curbs at the shuttle. The Rs200 goes flying and the front suspension fails. Hopkins leans against the tyres but manages to keep it under control and bring the car to a standstill on the outside of the circuit. Through into second place goes a very surprised Kenny McKinstry with the Metro 6R4 of Andreas Nurby now up into third. And McKinstry now holding on to that second place. Both cars two-wheeling as they come over the curbs at the exit of the chicane. But out in front with a clear lead now is Pekka Rantanen as he comes round to take the checkered flag with the Finnish Ford Rs200. And the battle for second place still continues as McKinstry tries to hold off Nurby's more powerful MG Metro 6R4. But leaving the Mad Hatters complex, the battle isn't over yet as Nurby gets the better line and puts the power down a little bit sooner, just pipping McKinstry to the post to get his second place for Norway. McKinstry's third place though, one of the most spectacular drives of the day, and on its way to winning Kenny McKinstry the Driver of the Day award. But in first place, Pekka Rantanen with the Ford Rs200 Evolution, getting maximum points again for Finland. Andreas Nurby gets 4 points for Norway, Kenny McKinstry 3 for Ireland, and Anders Carlson manages to continue and get 2 points for Sweden. And now on to the toughest heat of all for Britain after Trevor Hopkins' disaster. And on pole position for Heat 16 we've got Mark Rennison, the local driver with his Ford Rs200. Next to him, Olli Arnesson, the 4 times European champion from Sweden with his Audi Quattro Sport. And then outside of him, twice European champion, Matti Alamäki from Finland with the Lancia Delta S4. And as the cars line up and the lights go to red, we've got to remember that Mark Rennison's only running the standard 1800cc motor in his Ford Rs200. It's 350 brake horsepower, about half of the power of the Quattro Sport and the Delta. But Rennison makes a good start alongside Niittymaki, with the extra power of the Lancia and Arnesson's Quattro almost immediately demote him to third place. Rennison's car control steals the show as he takes Arnesson at checkers, and then Alamäki on the run up to the chicane. Just listen to that crowd. And it's Rennison who seems to have the European stars in his command at his home circuit. A tremendous three-cornered battle takes place behind him between Alamäki, Arnesson and the Norwegian Thor Holm with his Rs200. On the way up into Mad Hatters, and Rennison already has a comfortable lead. The three-cornered battle behind them slowing each driver down as they try to defend their lines. With the race in his command, Mark Rennison can afford to play to the crowd a little. Just watch this car control as he slides the car through Spa and checkers. And Rennison's flamboyant tail-out style of motoring has the crowd absolutely on its feet and cheering, but there's a tremendous three-cornered battle going on between the Lancia Delta, the Audi Quattro and Thor Holm's Norwegian Rs200. But at the front it's Mark Rennison. The race must be in the bag now with maximum points lined up for Britain as the car goes through the chicane on some 5 car lengths ahead of the rest of the field. But all of a sudden the crowd's going quiet. As the car arrives at Mad Hatters, red flags are being waved. The reason is Jon Christensen's crashed very heavily at the shuttle. His Volkswagen Golf slammed head-on into the barriers. Red flags are waved to stop the race as the Dane is freed from his car, fortunately without injury. But the question is, can Mark do it all over again on a second run? After a hasty return to the paddock for refuelling and check over, the cars line up on the grid for the rerun. Once again, it's Matti Alamäki and the Lancia Delta S4 making a blistering start with Ole Arnesen left at the line. Down to Spa, and this time Mark Rennison's taken advantage of his pole position to lead round the first corner, followed by Matti Alamäki, Ole Arnesen and Thor Holm. Sideways out of checkers, and it's Mark Rennison and Matti Alamäki on the limit as the cars race into the old chicane. They're followed by Ole Arnesen, the Quattro Sport, skipping over the chicane curbs, and the Rs200 of the Norwegian Thor Holm, who are both desperately trying to stay in touch with the leaders. But it's onto the loose of Samson curve, and already Mark Rennison's opening up a useful lead as Matti Alamäki comes under pressure from the Quattro of the Swede Ole Arnesen. Into Mad Hatters for the first time, the Quattro's under the Delta spoiler. Through the complex, and Alamäki gets the car out of line, allowing Ole Arnesen to power his way past. As the cars race across the loose of the finish straight, and complete lap 1. The order is now Mark Rennison for Britain, followed by Ole Arnesen for Sweden and Matti Alamäki for Finland. Once again, Mark Rennison four-wheel drifts the Rs200 spectacularly round the first Spa corner, now pursued by the charging Ole Arnesen and a determined Matti Alamäki. Rennison powers out of the notorious checkers curve before braking hard into the chicane, with a battle raging behind him between Ole Arnesen and Matti Alamäki. Matti will be disappointed at having lost out twice during the meeting to Ole Arnesen in similar circumstances. Onto Samson curve, and Mark's increasing his lead as the Scandinavians battle behind him. And into the Mad Hatters complex, and it's Mark Rennison leading, but Matti Alamäki is still on the tail of that Audi Quattro. Will he be able to return the compliment and find a way through to regain second place? Both the Delta and the Audi bounce over the curbs of the complex, and as the cars power onto the loose of the finish straight, the Audi Quattro has increased its lead. Ole Arnesen certainly has a better line through the tight corners. But back to the leader, and this now more than familiar sight round Spa and checkers. The Rs200 of Mark showing perfect car control, but followed by the still determined Ole Arnesen and Matti Alamäki. As they power out of checkers, Mark Rennison has to jump on the brakes and fight with the steering wheel in order to have the car under control through the old chicane. It's hard back onto the power as the car leaps over the bumps of the smooth surface Samson curve at over 135 miles an hour. Once again, Mark's driving a faultless race with Ole Arnesen still second and beginning now to open up a gap on his third place rival Matti Alamäki. But it's the Lancia Delta S4 closing under braking as the cars race into the Mad Hatters complex. Out of the complex, and it's Rennison powering down the finish straight to begin his last lap. Through the shuttle, and the Rs200 lifts a wheel as it skips over the curbs. The suspension setup on these cars is such that Mark Rennison continues undeterred. It's sideways round Spa and then a puff of tyre smoke as the brakes are applied before taking the perfect line round checkers ahead of Ole Arnesen and Matti Alamäki. For the last time out of checkers and into the old chicane, and Mark Rennison has the victory firmly within his sights now. This is actually amazingly the first time Mark's been able to contribute to the British team's score due to his engine problems on Saturday, yet they still lead, which suggests how well the British team has driven and competed over this whole weekend. But it's into the Mad Hatters complex for the last time, and the order remains Mark Rennison for Britain, from Sweden's Ole Arnesen, and Finland's Matti Alamäki. Mark Rennison really has saved the day for the British Rallycross team. And it's across the line, Mark again in a flamboyant tail-out slide across the loose, and taking the checkered flag for Great Britain at his home circuit, with his sponsor John Carter looking on in delight. Second place Ole Arnesen with the Audi Quattro Sport, and in third place that fearsome Lancia Delta S4, both turbocharged and supercharged, but he can't do anything about the delighted Mark Rennison. Somewhat in the shadow of these three, Thor Holm takes fourth place for Norway in his Rs200, while a fine drive by Bosun's Robert Verreken brings the Volkswagen Golf GTI home in fifth. As only the top 5 teams go through to the finals, Belgium, Ireland and Denmark are dropped at this stage. The consolation race for these teams provides plenty of action. Kenny McKinstry rockets into the distance ahead of Belgian teammates Francois Monton in the X-Track and Eddie Nutz in the Alpine Renault. Monton takes the inside line into checkers, but already Kenny McKinstry is up at the chicane with a commanding lead over Monton, Nutz and the colourful Audi Quattro of Mark Verreken, also for Belgium. This is about the last time we'll see the very unusual shape in Rallycross of the Alpine Renault V6. Eddie Nutz running the unusual four-wheel drive Renault V6 engine machine, originally built in Dieppe. Second place is taken by Francois Monton, having borrowed John Smith's X-Track Escort, which has an illustrious history, having taken Martin Schenker to the European Championship win in 1983. But victory in this consolation race is a fitting tribute to the driving skill of the man from Banbridge, County Down, Kenny McKinstry. And so to the finals, the 5 cars remaining starting 5 abreast, with the winning car from each running gaining 25 points, second place 20, and so on down to 5 points for 5th, provided the car's still running at the finish. And for the E-final, we've got Michael Shield in pole position with the red Metro 6R4. And alongside him is his main opposition, the Audi Quattro of 4 times European champion, Ole Arnesen. Next to him we've got Pekka Rantanen with the Swedish Ford Rs200, and Andreas Neby with the Metro 6R4. But Arnesen's using the Quattro's 700 brake horsepower to good effect off the line to leave the competition standing, while poor Mike Shields forced into 4th place by Rantanen's Rs200 and Neby's Metro. On the run up to the chicane, Mike Shields already trying hard to get past the similar Metro 6R4 of Andreas Neby from Norway. But it's Ole Arnesen in a commanding lead at the moment going up to the chicane with the 700 brake horsepower Audi Quattro Sport. Mike Shields still hasn't managed to get past that Norwegian 6R4, but they're both now closing on Pekka Rantanen's Ford Rs200. But on the way into Mad Hatters for the first time, it's Arnesen with a commanding lead now over the battling 6R4s, and ahead of them Rantanen's Rs200. And at the close of the first lap, it's Arnesen well in command with a beautifully sliding Audi Quattro across the finish line. Meanwhile behind him, Neby's Metro 6R4 gets alongside the Ford Rs200 but falls back before the shuffle. At Spa Corner, the leader Arnesen makes a mistake but has plenty of time to recover. Behind him, the 3-corner battle now still continuing, but the cars now slowing each other down as each driver has to defend his line. Onto the chicane, and Arnesen fights the big unwieldy Audi Quattro. This big powerful car lacks the handling finesse of the Metros and the Ford Rs200, but Arnesen's probably the most experienced Quattro driver of all. He's rallycrossed these cars since 1982. And into Mad Hatters, and Arnesen now has the race very much under his command. This car with over 700 brake horsepower available from its 20-valve 5-cylinder engine. But behind him, Neby again tries to pass the Finnish Rs200 in the complex, but gets very sideways indeed at the exit. But at the head of the field, it's Ole Arnesen still in command as he blasts the car down through the shuttle, through Spa, and then through Chequers. Arnesen's probably the most successful driver in European Rallycross at the moment. Only he and Martin Schenker have ever won the European Championship 4 times. Arnesen won it in 79, 80, 83 and 86. He's also been Nordic Rallycross champion, Swedish champion 3 times, 4 times the Norwegian champion, and also the Swedish ice racing champion of 1985. He certainly knows how to drive these Audi Quattros. The only other car he's competed with was a Works Ford Escort, and in his early days a Porsche 911. But it's through Mad Hatters, and Ole Arnesen once again making this a demonstration race for Sweden. And of course those extra 25 points won't come amiss for their chances either. Behind him, a curb-hopping Neby keeps the pressure on Peltari, while Michael Shields holding a good 4th position with his 6R4. Through Spa and through Chequers yet again, and the frost can be actually seen forming on the racing circuit now. The sub-zero temperatures causing some real problems for the drivers. But behind Arnesen, there's a terrific battle for second still continuing as Rantanen runs wide at Chequers, and there he takes an opportunity and dives through to be closely followed by Michael Shield, taking 2nd and 3rd places with the Metro 6R4s. But Arnesen has no such problems as he continues on his winning way. The Audi Quattro Sport riding beautifully over the bumps at Samson, thanks to Arnesen's modifications to increase the suspension travel on the Rallycross cars. The brake lights flashing in the Mad Hatters complex as Arnesen left foot brakes, balancing the power with his right foot with the brake pedal with the left, both balancing the car's handling and also building up the boost pressure for that sprint across the start-finish straight. And there seems to be little problem ahead of Arnesen, although he does teach one driver how to use his mirrors when he's being lapped. But down to Chequers for the last time, and Ole Arnesen hardly seemed to be bothered about Peter Roerig's Audi 80 Quattro. And on his way up to the chicane for the last time, and really a copybook performance by the haulage contractor from Malmö in Sweden. And once again, the Audi Quattro Sport demonstrating its stability as it howls through the Samson curve. Arnesen braking hard for Mad Hatters and going down from 6th to 2nd in that fantastic 6-speed gearbox. Last time through Mad Hatters, and once again Arneson sets the car up beautifully for the exit, throws up a little bit of shale on the outside and blasts across the finish line to record the first maximum 25 points of the Sweden in the E-final. Arneson's 25 points puts them into the overall lead, whilst Nerby takes second place for Norway, but Michael Shields' fine third place in the race keeps England in the second overall position. On now to the D final, and another tough race for Britain with John Welch's new X-Track Astra sandwiched between the Swedish Rs200 of Michael Nordstrom and Harold Martinson's 600 brake horsepower BMW. But the man to watch is on pole position. Matti Alamäki's Lancia Delta S4 is the car that John Welch will have to beat if he contests the European Championship in 1988. And as the lights turn green, Welch makes a superb start, the Astra reaching Spa ahead of Alamäki and Martinson. Alamäki dives down the inside going into checkers, but Welch fights back going into the chicane. Alamäki's trying to shut the door, but Welch is already alongside and pulls out a lead on the loose section through Samson. Just listen to that crowd. Alamäki isn't going to give up without a fight though and catches the Astra dramatically under braking for Mad Hatters. Welch is obviously having difficulty making the Astra turn in, but both cars are absolutely on the limit. Leave Mad Hatters, Alamäki leaps the curbs in an attempt to get alongside, but Welch finds the traction and blasts through the shuttle in the lead. And once again a perfect demonstration of the car control of these top European drivers as both cars slide through Spa and then into checkers. Behind them is a tremendous battle for third place as Harold Martinson is being caught by Michael Nordstrom's Rs200 after a very late start. But at the front it's John Welch ahead of Matti Alamäki, the Lancia Delta S4 being able to do nothing on the loose surfaces to catch the Astra. But just watch Alamäki catch him on the tarmac at Mad Hatters. Once again Welch runs wide at the entrance to Mad Hatters. This time Alamäki almost gets alongside and it's Welch's turn to shut the door. The Finn's forced to come off the power and it gives Welch a little bit of a breathing space as they cross the start-finish line, starting the third lap with John Welch still in a comfortable lead. Welch throws the car sideways through Spa. Alamäki seems to be dropping back. Is the Finn settling for second place, allowing Britain to score a maximum? Meanwhile, Michael Nordstrom's passed Harold Martinson's BMW for third place. But it's John Welch extending his lead as he makes his way through checkers and on his way up to the old chicane. The sphere drake mechanics had to work hard on the Astra at this meeting, overcoming some oversteer problems, but the handling of the car seems to be a lot more predictable now and he draws away from the Lancia Delta S4 on the loose. But just watch Alamäki catch him up on the tarmac as they arrive at Mad Hatters. And once again Welch runs wide and Alamäki almost gets alongside. Again Welch shuts the door, Alamäki's balked, clips the curbs and loses some ground. This time Alamäki really does seem to have settled for second place, the Lancia now having dropped about 3 car lengths on the sideways Vauxhall Astra of John Welch as they enter Spa and then go on into checkers. But Alamäki isn't giving up. The hissing supercharged and turbocharged Lancia is catching the Astra all the way up to the chicane. It certainly appears that the Astra is superior on the loose, but the Lancia is far quicker on the areas of tarmac. And once again John Welch gets a little bit of a cushion at the entrance to Mad Hatters, but again has this terrible problem getting the car to turn in. Alamäki almost gets alongside for a third time. This time Alamäki is closing right up and the race comes back to life as the cars cross the start-finish line almost side by side. Both cars fly through the shuttle, drivers throwing the cars sideways at Spa and then on into checkers, neither driver giving an inch. Through checkers and up to the chicane, and it's Welch being caught rapidly now by Matti Alamäki, but Welch drives a defensive line and there's nothing Alamäki can do. Once again through the chicane, Welsh draws out a couple of lengths on Alamaki's Lancia. Astra's obviously the better car on the loose surfaces, but Alamaki's catching him fast yet again into the Mad Hatters complex. Welsh has his customary problem, slides wide, and this time Alamaki sees the gaps through. Welsh tries to shut the door, but there's no chance. Alamaki's through and he's into the lead. Welsh is fighting back at the exit. Both cars are side by side, snaking down the finishing straight. The Astra gets very close to the Armco indeed, and Welsh has to settle for second at the shuttle. Once again, Welsh is trying everything he can as the cars slide through Spa corner. He's trying for the inside line down the checkers, but this time it's Alamaki's turn to close the door, and he keeps the lead. As the two leaders blast through checkers and on their way up to the chicane, it's Alamaki now gaining a few more cars lengths as they come through the gathering mist. Once again, Welsh is trying to use the extra speed on the loose surface of the Astra, but Alamaki's having nothing of it. He's fighting the sliding bucking car as they break into the Mad Hatters complex for the last time. And as the visibility starts to fall, Alamaki jumps for joy over the curbs at the exit of Mad Hatters to take the checkered flag with 25 more points to move Finland into overall honours. Welsh's second place keeps Britain in the top three, just 1 point behind Sweden, who benefit from Michael Nordstrom's third place in the D final. A brave fourth place was taken by Harold Martinson's BMW, who battled his way through the race with no fourth gear and unsuitable tyres, whilst fifth was taken by the German Torsten Ahrens with the four-wheel drive Golf Synchro. And now on to the C final. Can Britain fight back from third place? The pressure rests on Dimi Mavropoulos as Audi Quattro Sports flanked on the grid by Rolf Nielsen's Ford Rs200 and the Norwegian Dagfinn Larsen with his very rapid home-built bi-turbo Metro 6R4, which has been one of the real surprises of the Croft meeting. Pole position though, we've got Jukka Peltari with that 860 brake horsepower Porsche bi-turbo. Can he use the power in these very frosty conditions? Another start, Mavropoulos is left on the line as Larsen's Metro leads Nielsen into Spa. But Larsen overcooks it, the Metro getting very sideways indeed, and Nielsen says thank you very much and dives down the inside into checkers. The Swedes lead short-lived as Mavropoulos blasts through from third to first in one move. Nielsen takes up the pursuit on the way into the chicane, but he himself still under pressure from Larsen's Metro. Onto the loose for the first time, and the first three cars now drawing away from Peltari's Porsche. The Porsche's very twitchy handling doesn't allow him to use the 860 brake horsepower to full advantage in these conditions. The first three cars are closing up at Mad Hatters complex, the rather clumsy Audi Quattro being caught by the Metro and the nimble Ford Rs200. But across the line it's Dimi Mavropoulos, the Blackbird, the fruit dealer from New Covent Garden, who takes the lead for Great Britain. But look at that battle for second place. And just watch Nielsen's Rs200 as he clips the curbs at the shuttle. The car actually bounces off the tyre wall and still manages to continue in second place. But through Spa and through checkers, the places remain the same, but the battle's as close as ever. Peltari's slightly left out now in fourth place, but there's no other danger behind him. Mavropoulos leads through the chicane, but the battle for second place still continues. The Metro getting a little bit sideways and losing some ground to the Rs200. But it's Dimi Mavropoulos arriving at the Mad Hatters complex is now extending his lead, pacing himself perfectly. Dimi spent over a year developing this Audi Quattro Sport with very little outside assistance. If you'll forgive the pun, he's now getting the fruits of his efforts. And it's Mavropoulos who blasts down across the start-finish line to start the third lap, through the shuttle in sixth gear and then throwing the car sideways at the entrance to Spa. Audi Quattro, a much more difficult car to balance on the powers than the more nimble Metro, but Dimi's really getting the hang of this machine now. And it's up to the chicane, whilst down at checkers the battle for second place still continues, the drivers tripping over each other and slowing themselves down. Onto the loose yet again, and a perfect demonstration drive by Dimi Mavropoulos with the Audi Quattro Sport S1. 20-valve, 5-cylinder engine developing something in the region of 600 brake horsepower. Dimmy was saying this car's actually for sale. The price was something akin to a 2-bedroom semi in a rather nice residential area. Meanwhile, in second place, the tail of Nordstrom's Rs200 is obviously showing signs of the attention of Larsen's Metro 6R4. But Mavropoulos' fire-breathing Quattro has no such problems as he passes through the shuttle and once again sets the car up beautifully for Spa Corner. The battle for second place continues with Larsen's 6R4 pressing the Ford Rs200 hard, but he just can't find a way past. Meanwhile, Finland's anchorman, the young student Jukka Peltari, holds fourth place with the Porsche Bi-Turbo. But at the front it's the distinctive car and the distinctive driver, Dimmy Mavropoulos with the Audi Quattro Sport, well in the lead as he comes through Samson. Dimmy, as I say, very distinctive indeed, the tall man with the silver grey fur hat, often seen in rallycross paddocks all over Europe. In fact, Dimmy's rallycross commitments in Europe have been somewhat restricted over the last year by his World Championship rallying aspirations. Dimmy actually scoring a fine second place on the Cypriot Rally with the Sierra Cosworth. Once again, he's demonstrating that car control with the Audi Quattro now. Dimmy's been associated with the Audi model since about 1983, when he first bought Franz Wurst's ex-European Championship winning car. This year he switched to the Audi Quattro S1, and after a number of suspension and engine teething problems, he really seems to have got this car moving. Once again, the battle for second continues, the tail end of Nordstrom's Rs200 looking tattier and tattier, while Larsen almost drives into the tyres at Chequers. But Dimmy Mavropoulos has no such problems with the Quattro Sport. With one lap to go, Dimmy makes his way through Samson Curve and into Mad Hatters, ready to cross the finish line for the second from last time. Watch out for the battle behind him though. The Metro 6R4 is now gaining on the Ford Rs200, which is smoking ominously from a weak turbo oil seal. Larsen's jumping the curbs in an attempt to get past the Rs200, which is obviously now down on power. But Mavropoulos crosses the line and starts the last lap. Fire-breathing Audi Quattro once again being balanced on the power through the shuttle and then through Spa and then through Chequers. But who's it going to be behind him? The Rs200 slowed through the shuttle and Larsen's through with the Metro 6R4. Nordstrom's still holding on in third place, but the Rs200 is looking very second-hand indeed. But the man at the front on his last lap with a perfect demonstration drive which will take Great Britain back onto the top on the point scoring. Dimmy Mavropoulos jumping for joy with the Audi Quattro Sport. And the Metro's catching him, but Dimmy's pacing himself perfectly, going into Mad Hatters for the last time. The Norwegian's closing the gap right down to less than 2 seconds behind Mavropoulos, but Dimmy's taking no chances and he blasts the Quattro across the finish line right on the rev limit to take the checkered flag for Britain. Second place goes to Larsen, while third is Nordstrom with the Swedish Ford Rs200. But those maximum points scored by Dimmy Mavropoulos take Great Britain back onto the top and into the lead for the 1987 Internations Cup. Nordstrom's survival with that blown turbocharger to take third place is 15 points for Sweden. That leads them to second ahead of Finland.
Sweden and Finland, who are very close together, only 2 points separating them, but Britain now with what? A 9-point advantage. Absolutely, yes.
And it's now on to the B final, and as the light continues to fade, Will Gollop in the Mobile Metro upholds British honour. He dominates his opposition from Finland's Timo Virtanen, Sweden Anders Carlsen and Norway's Thor Holm. Let's just sit back and watch one of Rallycross's masters in action. As he enters the Mad Hatters complex for the last time. With the car moving sideways and spinning its wheels in second gear, he even has time to look over his shoulder to see where the opposition's gone. Will crosses the line to take maximum points by 11 seconds from Timo Virtanen and Anders Carlsen. Meanwhile, Tor Hung for Norway's black flagged after his Rs200 began to shed its rear bodywork. This means that Great Britain only needs to finish in the top 5 places in the A final to win the Internations Cup from either Sweden or Finland. Representing Great Britain in the A final is Mark Rennison. At only 25 years of age, he's in a position where he can either win or lose the cup for Great Britain. It's a nerve-wracking situation for young Mark, and here at his home circuit too. To make matters worse, next to him on the grid are the Swedish Audi Quattro Sport of Sven Lestander and the Peugeot 205 T16 of European champion Seppo Niittymaki. And the race organisers at Croft seem to have timed it perfectly as the light's beginning to fade as the start lights go from red to green, and Rennison and Niittymaki both make superb starts, charging off into the dusk ahead of Lestander. Rennison gets very sideways at Spa, but he stays ahead of Lestander, who's trying everything he can to do to tame the wild Audi Quattro's handling. But it's the maestro Seppo Niittymaki in command. With only one more event to go before his retirement from the sport, he dominates this race with a superb demonstration of car control. Meanwhile, Lestander's in really big handling problems with the Audi Quattro Sport, and Mark Rennison's quite happy to sit in a secure second position to take the Internations Cup for Great Britain. Through Mad Hatters for the first time, and Mark's even applying some pressure to Niittymaki, the Peugeot jumping over the curbs in an attempt to stay ahead. But Mark's quite happy to sit back, the car setting itself up very sideways indeed as the cars blast through the shuttle. And once again, a demonstration of perfect car control. Seppo Niittymaki and Mark Rennison having an unofficial competition to see who can drive the most sideways through the Spa and Chequers complex. But it's Seppo Niittymaki leading up to the chicane for the second time. Both drivers really enjoying themselves in these quite slippery conditions, Lestander less so with the Audi Quattro Sport. And once again, Seppo Niittymaki is now building up quite a lead over Mark Rennison's Rs200, but both drivers are quite happy to maintain it like that, although Rennison's still charging very hard indeed. And bear in mind that Mark Rennison's still running that standard rally spec 1800cc engine in his Ford Rs200. There's probably some 200 brake horsepower down on the Peugeot in front of him and the Audi Quattro Sport behind him. And Niittymaki, really enjoying himself now, is putting the crowd on their feet at Croft with this beautiful display of sideways motoring. Up into Chequers corner, and the light's beginning to fade quite badly now. Mark Rennison's holding on in second place, and Lestander in third for Sweden with the Audi Quattro Sport. But it's Seppo Niittymaki, the maestro, in his last season of Rallycross, really demonstrating his ability here at Croft with the Peugeot 205 T16. The early evening mist now settling right round the circuit getting very frosty and very icy, but it doesn't seem to matter at all to the Flying Finn. And it's once again the first two cars on their way through the Mad Hatters complex, the Peugeot jumping for joy over the curbs at the exit as he puts the power down to blast across the line and into the shuttle. We only hope that Terje Shi can manage the car control and the ability to handle this Peugeot in the same way as Seppo Niittymaki when Terje takes over this car for the 1988 season. And Mark Rennison once again demonstrating his tail-out approach to motoring. Mark, the local driver on the local circuit, you wouldn't believe he's 200 brake horsepower down on that Peugeot in front. And Mark actually catching the Peugeot on the way up through the chicane, but I think Seppo Niittymaki is just pacing himself now and enjoying his race. Through Samson yet again, and Seppo Niittymaki, the car sliding and bucking, but Mark Rennison driving at 10/10 and reeling him in. Could it be that Mark's going to try for the lead? Certainly it appears so. He's closing and he's putting the Peugeot on yet more pressure. Both cars jumping the curbs at the exit of Mad Hatters, and the Peugeot starting to run very wide indeed. Once again, Seppo Niittymaki setting the car up perfectly for Spa. Mark Rennison equally tail out behind him. Through Chequers, and Seppo Niittymaki's once again drawn out a little bit of a lead on the Rs200 on the fastest parts of the circuit. But the Peugeot 205 T16, it revolutionised rallying, it's also revolutionising Rallycross. Seppo Niittymaki makes his way up to start the last lap. He negotiates Mad Hatters some 5 seconds ahead of Mark Rennison. Mark Renison, he's really shown his abilities. Who knows what can happen when he goes into European Rallycross in 1988. But once again, let's just watch Seppo Niitimäki's car control as he sends this Peugeot 205 T16 flying through Samson and Chequers corners. And this is the last time we'll see Seppo Niitimäki on Rallycross circuits throughout Europe. So let's enjoy the spectacle of him taking the chicane for the last time. Up into fifth gear, touching 135 miles an hour, the engine actually bouncing on the rev limiter in top gear all the way through Samson Curve before he brakes down to take the Mad Hatters Complex and keep his unbeaten record at Croft. Behind him, Mark Renison with the DSRM Ford Rs200, taking a sensible second place to secure the Internations Cup for Great Britain. But crossing the line, it's Seppo Niitimäki maintaining his 100% record, unbeaten here at Croft. But the crowd are on their feet already cheering Mark Renison. Their second place means that Great Britain wins the 1987 Internations Cup. And to the crowd's delight, Mark indulges in his own personal celebration. And sport of Rallycross being as it is, the first man to congratulate Mark Renison is Seppo Niitimäki, who jumps out of his car to greet him. But the Great Britain team, John Welch, Michael Shield, Mark Renison, Dimi Mavropoulos and Trevor Hopkins, win the 1987 FIA Internations Cup. According to the rules set by the FIA, Great Britain can't hold the Internations Cup for a second successive year. So 1988 Internations Cup will be hosted by the runners-up, Finland. Already the British Rallycross team are thinking of making it a double. So on behalf of Croft Video Productions, I hope you enjoyed the 1987 event. I hope you join us again in 1988 from Finland.